Hello, darling. It's so wonderful to be doing a reading for you again. I'm really excited to share. I felt really drawn to the Wildwood Tarot deck. That is this guy here. And it's very earthy, very nature based. I have another deck that I've been BFFs with for a little bit, but I've been really reconnecting with this one recently, and I think it's yeah. I think the women that I've been doing these for, there is like a sense of rewilding happening, and these cards are very helpful, I would say, in that process. They are more pagan based, so they're very earth spirituality. They are based around the year of the wheel, if you're familiar with that. So some of the cards are associated with seasons or celebrations that are along the year of the wheel. And the year of the wheel is very much a celebration of seasons. So a little card jumped out here, so I don't know where he fits in yet, but I'm gonna put him out there. So I've been meditating on you and your spirit, your essence, if you will, and just really, as I'm shuffling the cards and just really allowing that to kind of set the tone. And as always, I know it's been a little bit since we've had a reading, so I just want to explain that, during the session, it's important to really pay attention to what resonates with your body. So sometimes it's good to have a journal handy and make notes. And what I've been telling people recently is just something that struck me was it's not always people's exact words that we hear. It's our interpretation of what they're saying. And so a lot of times it's not necessarily that you get down word for word what I say, but that you write down what you hear and how you understand what I said. Because I really believe spirit is so much bigger than even our language. And that's hard for me to admit because I love language. I at least love communication and articulation. But I really believe there's like some kind of magic that happens between my mouth and your ears that, and this isn't scientifically based, so like, don't quote me on it, but there's a magic that happens where you hear what you need to hear. And that's not always the exact words that I'm saying. And that's kind of the beauty of leaving this practice up to spirit to I sit down at my space here and I just prepare myself to be a conduit and try to put, my things aside so that I can focus on what's going on for you. And I really then just trust that once I give it to you, it's out of my hands and up to you in spirit to work through that material in whatever way you need. So, that being said, resonance, take what resonates with you, leave behind what doesn't. And keep in mind that I am just the messenger. And a lot of times, honestly, I forget people's readings when they're done. So if you have questions or there's something you want to clarify, feel free to come back to me. Just know that I may not be able to answer. And then I would recommend that you take any questions or things that you're wrestling with into your spiritual practice, however that looks. Meditation is great. Prayer is great. Whatever connection you have with the spiritual world. I generally encourage people to present what they're wrestling with to that being entity or whatever. So, yeah, I'm going to get started. I'm going to show you my space here just so you get a feel for what I'm looking at. This is my new table. I keep several candles, some sage, and then some stones that like to hang out with me here. that tend to bring different kinds of energies to my little altar, if you will. Although it's not quite an altar, it's more of a workspace, a sacred workspace. But I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to keep this card that fell. And I'm working with I'm going to work with the Celtic Cross. That's kind of my standard. Unless someone has a specific question they want answered, I'll do some other spreads with them. But I really feel like this is one that gives me some really good insight. Also, I am, at this point, not enough familiar with this deck, so I am only doing right side up cards. I won't do any reversals. I know that may not really make a difference to you, but I just like to say it. Okay. All right. Okay, so let me show you the spread here. That way you can just kind of get a feel for it. Feel free to pause here if you'd like to really look at in depth at the cards. And we'll go through them together, and I'll kind of tell you, well, we'll see what I'll tell you. So in the position of you in your present moment, we have the Ace of Bows. And the Wildwood Tarot deck is a little bit different. So you can see it says Spark of Life. The bows correspond with swords in the traditional tarot deck. So there's bows with swords, there's arrows with wands, stones with coins or pentacles, and then cups. In this, I think it's vessels, which is cups. So bows corresponds with communication, language, words. I like the spark of life is what's really sticking out to me, and I think we're going to come back to that. So I'm going to just let that sit for a minute. In your most recent past, we have the Four of Stones, which is protection. And I like that it's like this little baby deer under, it looks like a Stonehenge creation. And Stonehenge was, there's a lot of theory about Stonehenge. Obviously, it's very confusing for people. I really think there's something supernatural, super spiritual that happened there. And to me, what this card reminds me of is that there's a sense in your most recent past that you were like, there's some area of your life where you're like this newborn baby deer, and in a sense defenseless and needing protection, and that there has been a good deal of spiritual protection around you. Yeah, it feels very like vulnerable and new, but in a way that's like holding a baby, holding a brand new baby in the world. Like, and the card, I don't know, I just keep getting the sense that there was a really good space for you. And even if it wasn't at the time that you didn't recognize it, there was actually a lot of beauty and I don't know if purity is the right word, but there is a sense of, like, to me, vulnerability can go, like, it can really go to the extreme of where you're like, I feel unsafe and exposed, and this is really a sense of like you felt surrounded. even in this very new time, new phase of life, that you were surrounded, and I think I just need to affirm that um, that you were surrounded and protected. What you sense is correct. Um, the the near future is the Two of Vessels, and it is attraction. So this is kind of my understanding of the Two of Vessels is that this is kind of the precursor to the Lover's card in the major arcana. Um, and minor arcana cards, it's not that they're diminished, but um, they're a little bit more transient. They have a little less like kick to them, whereas the major arcana cards are very potent and their messages are strong and tend to be lasting or deep, you know. Um, they're going far in some direction. Um, but what I really like about this for your near future, the story I'm seeing play out, what I'll put it this way, is that you went from this place of being really new and fresh in the world in some way in your life, and you were being protected so that that new thing could be born. And now you're experiencing this it's this spark of life. That term just keeps like coming up, where um, the protection phase, the baby deer phase, may have felt like a sense of dormancy, even because being so new. I mean, babies sleep all the time, right? Like they eat, sleep, poop. Their functioning is very basic because all of that energy is going toward the growth of their being. They grow so rapidly in the first 2 years of life, like that. They need to sleep. They need that energy reserve to really work on brain development, motor skills development, language development, all these things. And so it may have felt like a sense of dormancy where you didn't quite realize what was happening, that you were really birthing something new. And now in this current moment, you are like the fire is being lit. Like you're like, and with that fire being lit, I'm getting kind of the image of lighting up the room. So where you may have felt in the dark before, this like spark of life that you're experiencing is not only rejuvenating on the inside, but it's also like lighting up your world. Like you're able to see around you for the first time in a while. And so you may be like, what? Like the sun has come up. It's time to take a look at the landscape around you. And I would just really encourage you to not make any judgments at this time. Like as you're waking up and looking around, even as you're noticing these changes inside yourself, really practice being the observer at this point, because you don't have the full picture yet. It's really important to know that. Just because the lights have come on does not mean you can see everything you need to see. It also, you haven't quite fully realized all the things that are being birthed anew in you. And so, if you can, as much as you can, practice stepping back and just looking around and noting, even if it's like, wow, I feel really anxious when I go to the gym. Oh, when I go to bed, I like to, like just notice, and maybe keep a little notepad or a pocket journal with you, so that you can notice. And these might be good changes too. Like you might be sitting in traffic and have someone cut you off, and you realize like you don't respond with the same level of like anger that you used to, or frustration. You might be able to like actually breathe out a prayer for that person. Or even just sit with yourself and go, that was rude, but not like get angry. And so you might just notice these subtle changes in yourself. And I think if you document them, it's going to be really helpful to focus on the momentum that's growing, the good momentum that's growing as you're birthing new things and practicing new things in your life. And so then I see that naturally leading to the Two of Vessels. I see that naturally leading to a state where you are law of attracting more and more and more good in your life. Like that snowball effect is just compounding. And it's really important. Our imaginations are very important. And this is something a teacher recently taught me. Our imaginations are very important when it comes to manifestation, because we have to be able to imagine it happening in order to bring it into our real world. And unfortunately, what happens is we rely so much on our experience and our memories that we really just end up regurgitating and reproducing those things. And so, focusing on the changes that you're making, that really is what then your imagination starts to cling to, is like, oh, I never, like, let's for example say your one of your observation is like, wow, I never thought this was possible. And you can go, huh, it is possible. And you can really just feed that to your imagination and say, see, it's possible. And your imagination go, oh, okay, cool, let's make that again. Or like, let's keep exploring that, let's keep opening up. And um and so and so just really take notice and start to focus on the good things that are evolving, and let that weigh out the negative experiences of the past where you might have felt inept um, or unable, or even um, like what's the word, inadequate. Um, Sometimes things just start coming, and I'm sorry if I've talked really quickly, but like it's like almost like it just, and then afterwards I'm a little like, whoa, wow, okay, refocus. Okay. So the bridge, there's a card that overlays these three, and those in the Celtic cross, it's usually a bridge or a barrier. I would say this is probably a bridge. It's the Two of Stones, which is home, and I think this is both your literal home and your metaphysical home. Like, um, really focusing, I think, on your home environment is going to be important, and that's going to be it's all about making it a space where you feel like you can just be you. When you walk through that door, you know, like, I can let my shoulders down. I can walk around in my underwear, like whatever that level of vulnerability looks like for you. But you really feel a sense of like comfort and security and stability. And then start adding things to your home that invite in more of what you want in your life. And so I'm just thinking of like what I showed you with my workspace here, and altars and things like that have become very important to me, where I will have parts of my room or my space set up to have pictures of my teachers or my loved ones, or times in my life that were very celebratory. I like to put my own artwork on the wall, because I'm like a little kid. I want to show off the things I've made. And that helps really let my inner child feel at ease. Like, this is a space where she gets to be celebrated and played with, and like allowed to play in the world. So just thinking in terms of that, like, not just do you have a clean, safe, warm space, but how can your space really evoke the parts of you that you're trying to grow and nurture, and expand upon. So there's a hopes and fears here, and in the hopes category we have the Page of Vessels, which is the otter. I love otters. I don't know. There's just something about them. I think they're really awesome, even though they do kind of look like giant rats with these long tails. But it's the otter here. And then the fears is the Six of Stones, which is exploitation. And again, I think this is what I was talking about when we're talking about being inept or lacking abundance. It's I think also deep down in there is a fear that in part of this process you are exposing yourself more and more to the world, and there's a latent fear that that will be taken advantage of, that you are not safe in exposing yourself, that people will only be out to hurt you. And just remember that is a fear. And it's important to remind yourself that as long as you have you and you're there for you, no one can take from you what you do not give to them. So I'm going to look up the page of vessels, though, because so this is what I think is interesting. What it says about the otter is equally at home on land or in water. The otter's ability to move between these spheres, perceived as the way between worlds, made it especially sacred to the Celts. It is also sometimes listed as one of the oldest animals in the story of the rescue of the godchild Mabon, or Mabon, the child god. As a dreamer and a visionary, you weave a spell that few can resist. Your loyalty, devotion, and sense of fair play mark you out as an individual whose will is tempered by a profound understanding of the other world. So what's cool about what they're saying is with the otter is that so there's land, which is in our understanding of things and kind of the spiritual world understanding of things. Land is reality, like the tangible reality. Water is the emotional world, and that can also be then translated into like the spiritual world. Although when we talk about emotional and spiritual bodies, those are like in ourselves, those are two different things. But in symbolism terms, that's what that looks like. And the otter is adept at going from land to water and back to land very easily. That's part of the reason I love them so much, because they are at home in either world. And I just get this sense that part of what's developing and the reason that the protection card has a strong spiritual component is that part of what is being birthed and developed in you is it's not the ability, because the ability has always been there for you to kind of serve as a bridge or a messenger between the spirit world and our tangible reality. But it's a confidence in that work that you are beginning to recognize and understand maybe what your mission is on this earth during this lifetime. And that's no small thing. Like that's actually really fucking huge. And excuse my language. But I think the fear of exploitation comes with that realization that you have something tremendous to offer the world, and you don't quite know how to move forward with it without like being taken advantage of. So there's two things that come to mind with that. One is it's now a crucial time to work on your boundaries and figuring out what your boundaries are in your personal life, your professional life. That will all help you as you move forward. It will help give you confidence that you have boundaries that are solid and that you can depend on. And so as you become more and more exposed to the world, you have these kind of fail-safe places to retreat to if things don't go well. But also just recognizing like that your boundaries will be respected if you respect them. So keep that energy in mind, that you really want to respect your boundaries, because that will send out the warning signs to the rest of the world that like, nope, this is only as far as you go. The other thing was, I said there were two things, didn't I? Okay, so I was talking about, I don't know. It'll come back to me if it's meant to be shared because it's gone. Boundaries, though. I think boundaries will really help you. It was about your capabilities. Oh, the other thing was to not draw any conclusions right now. Again, as I mentioned before, step back and just observe. Take notice. Bring things into your prayer and meditation and spiritual time that you have questions with, and then take notice and observe. And just give yourself space to really sort out the landscape that you're walking into before you make a lot of heavy judgments or decisions about like what should be happening. Okay. Because decision is coming. That's the message I'm getting here. So don't worry about rushing into it, because there will be a point when you make a decision. That's the resolution card at the top here. Look at this guy. I love it. I love it. It's the two of bows. Bows again are connected to, arrows are swords, bows are wands. And wands are very connected to our spirituality. So what I love about this is that he's got like this really interesting, he's got the wands in his hand, the bows. They are connected to earth, but he is also clearly like in the clouds in the heavens. And then it's like everything's on fire. It kind of reminds me of, I don't know if you're familiar with the story of Moses, but in the Old Testament, but sorry, someone just came in and I don't recognize the voice. But Moses, he went up to Mount Sinai. So there was kind of this deep understanding that this mountain was inhabited by God. And he felt that he needed to go up there. He went on a walk. I think he was like maybe shepherding up there. He ended up hearing a voice and he kept following it. And then he was like confronted with God. And I have a feeling like you're going to have a moment like that where you're going to have your own Mount Sinai, and where you just have this really intense interaction with the divine. And the thing about that, one of the things about that was that Moses came down and his hair was white. So then that's how people knew he had encountered God. And so there's kind of going to be this like moment where I have a feeling you're going to have this encounter, and there's going to be something about you that's changed, to a point where you might find that people afterwards remark like, you seem different. They're maybe not going to know what that is, and they're not going to know how to articulate it, but that's again where you can just kind of take note and be like, yeah, there is something different, right? In the meantime though, so that's coming, just let it happen. Let it come to you. Don't try to control or manipulate it. Just in the meantime, celebrate. I want you to find some women that you can dance with and that you can celebrate with. And even if you have to be the instigator and say, hey, ladies, I feel deeply connected to you. I want to spend time with you. Come to my house. Let's have wine and just enjoy time together. There will be no agenda. We can put on some music. We can dance. We can do whatever, but I want to celebrate. Like, let's bring a space together where we can bring the things we want to celebrate in our lives to the table and share those with each other. Whatever that looks like. I just think it's going to be important for you. There's something very powerful about the feminine energy in this card. And somehow the divine feminine is tied into the work that you're doing. So finding divine feminine, like women who really exhibit that or who have that energy for you, bringing them close together with you is going to set some really foundational pieces in place where it's going to empower the work you're going to do and that you are doing. And it's going to empower and solidify is the word I'm getting, where you just really feel like, yeah, this is definitely where my heart beats the fastest and the most passionate ways. Goodness, we are almost at time. Can't believe it. Okay. So some powerful, other powerful forces will be the Ace of Stones, which is This is the foundation of life. And I'm going to pull out the book in a minute and kind of share a little about what that says. But the other one is our only major arcana card in this whole thing, which is the moon on the water. And I think that's because it's important for you to know that you have otherworldly resources. What I love about the moon on the water is that it reminds me that the moon is so connected to like the feminine, like our lunar, our cycles are based on lunar cycles, and we even call her grandmother moon. Like that's kind of in the more like earth spirituality practices. That's what she's called. You know, in a lot of ways we honor the moon. Like in the new moon, it's the time to plant the new seeds, and the full moon is about the harvest of those seeds, and paying attention to our cycles in between. So anyway, I think it's a very strong reminder that the moon is an ally for you, and the energy of the moon is with you. And so it may be a really good time to evaluate what your new moon and full moon practices are. I will also share something that I don't share with very many people, because I think it's a very powerful practice, is that I actually, and I know many women who do, I actually collect my period blood. It can be called moon blood even, and I offer it back to the earth. And so whenever I have my period, I use a Diva cup, so it makes it pretty easy for me to do. But I will collect it. I add a little bit of water just for absorption's sake. And I go out to an apple tree that we have in our backyard. And I kind of focus on what is it that I want to be giving back to the earth. Part of my prayer is that I acknowledge that my gift is my past, my present, and my future. Because my past, you know, I've been a woman for a long time now. My present is the actual like offering itself, and then my future, like my future babes that will come from my womb, hopefully. I mean, that's one of my prayers, and I give this back to the earth and I just kind of say give it back with lots of gratitude. Okay, so I'm trusting that you will hold that that you'll hold that close, and I don't have any feeling that you'll like broadcast that to the world, but it is, it's definitely a little bit more of the witchy things that I do. My girlfriend and I are starting a women's grief and empowerment time together on the new moon. So we did that we had to do that last month by phone. This month we'll actually be getting together. And then for the full moon, I usually do a tarot spread. I like to sit in that time. I like to go outside. Sometimes when it's not snowing, I like to be barefoot on the ground, just in the presence of the moon, just really feeling that connection. So this might be a really good space to figure out what your new moon rituals are and how you can really honor that space for yourself and with spirit. Also, it being on the water, it's kind of, again, that like spiritual world, emotional world connection, which I think is really powerful for you. Ace of Stones, let me pull that out real quick. Okay, so I think this is really interesting. This is actually the moon on the water. The moon on the water is placed at the womb of the wheel, the midwinter solstice on December 21st, and the dark sun. Its element is earth, and it is at the gateway of the soul. It is the mystic still point where ideas and desires change from pure thought to objective reality. Powerful shit. Okay, Ace of Stones. All right. I love this. The most potent act of the mind is to conceive of an idea and manifest it into practical material reality. This means being able to formulate and marshal your thoughts to bring about a real world change or transformation of a wish, dream, or desire, making it physically happen. So I just love that that comes in as like, it's almost like this is like a metaphorical like thing that you can hold on to. And um, it has similar markings to the stones in the protection card, which I think is interesting. Um, I don't know. I just get this sense that like there's a grounding within you that needs to happen, and picturing a foundation of life stone that's like this ancient symbol, like really rooted in the earth. It's something that you can bind yourself to when you need to feel grounded, and yet it's still very much connected to the spiritual world. So, um, it has ancient roots that you can tap into. Man, girl. Um, I think that's it. Please feel free to message me. Thank you so much for letting me share. It's always a pleasure, and it's always, honestly, it just excites me to see a glimpse into what your world looks like right now. And it sounds like it's really powerful and really potent what is going on. Um, Let me know how I can continue to support you. Even if you need some mini readings, we can talk about what that looks like. And I'd love to come alongside you in any way that I can as you're moving through this process. And honestly, I don't think I've ever said that in a reading, that I would like to come alongside someone and help them through what's going on. But I feel like there's something really powerful about what the work that you're doing, and if there's a way that I can continue to support you, I'd love to do that. Um, on a business note, I am going to be opening up some space for more readings. I have some bills that I need to pay, and at the moment, I don't have the ability to get a physical job outside of my home. So this is something I love to share, and if you feel like it's something that is helpful to you or of service to you, I would welcome any any referrals that you have. And I'm currently kind of thinking and toying with having a referral kind of reward system. So if you want to let me know like what you would like to see that being, I'm open to ideas. And I would also like really love to meet your referrals. If you have someone that you feel like could use a reading, please feel free to send them my way, especially in the month of March. I am going to be working to, I have some rent things that I need to take care of. So month of March is what I'm aiming for. Anyway, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for letting me offer this to you. And I hope to hear back from you soon. Take care.